I'm the communications officer for CryptoWatt, and that means I'm here to talk about all of the things that we're doing down there with respect to the project as we establish our world headquarters for the business here in Butte, Montana. So this presentation is going to be about where we've come in a very short time, as well as where we're looking to be in a few more short months. I do understand that probably everyone in this room wants to know what is Bitcoin, what is cryptocurrency, what is the blockchain. And we'll touch on it a little bit here, but that being said, how many folks in this room attended the March 1st lecture that was up at Montana Tech, hosted by the Ore Diggers for our CTO, Fred Von Groff, to talk about Bitcoin? Not very many folks. Okay, that was a good. It was billed as an introduction to understanding Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and the blockchain, and it was well attended. I think we had about 40 or 50 folks there, and it was mostly questions. Fred and others within our company definitely want to be as accessible and be able to provide as much education to people as possible as to answering those basic questions. Why? Well, I mean, it's a lot to do with getting folks comfortable and confident with a business that is very comfortable and confident in its model and what we're doing right now, and we're excited to look at the future. We think we're going to be here for a long time, and as a result, you know, we definitely want to be a good corporate citizen. We've been very transparent with everything we've done up to this point, which is something new within the cryptocurrency industry, and we want to continue to do that. And so these pieces of paper and pen, I would invite you either at the beginning of the talk, during the talk, if something comes up that spurs a question, I would like you to write down any question that you would like to have the answer to relative to our project or Bitcoin and blockchain technology in general. I'm going to collect those because Fred and others within the organization, I think, are interested in coming back to do maybe another installment or some additional installments of talks here or other places around the community. I know we are working with the school district right now to give a lecture to their school board here in the coming month or so. So please get your questions out there. But with respect to me being an expert in Bitcoin and blockchain technology, my learning curve is certainly on the upswing, but I'm not there yet. And so for starters today, I just want you to have a little more familiarity with your latest company that is growing here in Butte and what's going on out at the former MSD Technology site. So please fill out your questions, comments, concerns, whatever comes to mind. We'll collect them at the end of the day and address them at a later date. We're also in the process of building our website, so questions that are asked pretty regularly, we'll try and have those as well as the answers to them on our website once we complete the construction of that. But right now we're focused on the construction of what will soon be the largest Bitcoin mining operation in the state of Montana. And as we move forward with further development at this site and some other potential areas we're looking at, the goal is for CryptoWatt to be the largest Bitcoin mining operation in North America, and might actually spread to be the largest one in the world as well. So pretty exciting stuff for us to go from being the world's largest copper mining center to one of the world's largest Bitcoin mining centers in a short time. Sir, in the back?
I was just wondering, when you say you're one of the largest, how do you what units of measure do you distinguish yourself from others?
What it's generally equated to, and it's generally I mean, like a 1-to-1 is the electricity usage right now. It's done in megawattage, and so we're at 3 megawatts of electricity at the site right now. Sometime within the next month or so, in June for sure, we'll be up to 32 megawatts, which will put us ahead of the other significant cryptocurrency mining operation in Montana. That's Project Spokane, that is located over in Bonner on the old Stimson mill site. So that'll make us larger than them and amongst the largest megawatt-wise in the United States. Yep.
Matt, where's the site located?
The site is at the former Mansfield Technology Center. So let me just dive right in here, and a lot of these questions will be answered, and that way it'll give us some time to maybe cover some additional questions and discussion items when we get to it. They should be, we got folks, anybody need a card, just raise your hand and keep an eye out, and I'll try and make sure that we get those over to you. So I think I've really kind of covered this right out of the gate, just a basic introduction to who CryptoWatt is. And so we are right now, but we're going to be much more so an international company, and we are headquartered here in Butte, Montana, out at the former Mansfield Technology site. We're an industry leader in the way we do things and the way we will continue to innovate things within Bitcoin, cryptocurrency mining, and the blockchain technologies. And so right now we've started and covered actually a lot of ground since we've started. We took ownership of the MSE site in mid-January, and we're online with our first 3 megawatts of electricity in less than 2 months out there. And we have continued to grow. Now we're going from 3 to 32 to 34 here in the next month. So things are moving along quite rapidly. And there's basically in this industry, there are 2 models. And most outfits combine the 2 of them together. One is they call it the proprietary model, which that's where the company owns all of the machines that are doing the mining. And I'll invite you to take a look at these. I actually brought a couple of the actual Bitcoin miners. Bitcoin miner does not wear a hard hat and carry a pick and lunch pail to work. It's one of these little gizmos that are up here on the front table here. The other model is the hosting or co-location model. And that's when a company puts in all of the infrastructure or has all of the infrastructure to run Bitcoin miners, and they, for a fee for service, will allow other individuals who own the machines but don't have the means to do the mining to host those machines on site. We started out of the gate with a split between those 2, but I think we've made an internal decision that we're going to start moving away from the co-hosting and co-location into more of the proprietary machine model of the crypto business. So these are just some of the features and highlights about our company, and maybe some of the reasons why we are where we are. And so that's a real good question. Why Butte? I mean, if this is going to be an international company, why would we select Butte of all of the places around the globe that we can? Well, I think for starters, we can agree that America is probably the most stable place to do business in the world. So finding a good site within America is a good place to start. But when you talk about and learn about how the mining process is currently done, it takes high levels of electricity in large industrial spaces. Montana has one of the lowest ambient temperatures of any state in the lower 48. We also happen to have a lot, Northwestern Energy, hats off to them, has established through a lot of work its predecessor did in the Montana Power Company, but has continued to improve and grow upon a grid system to carry electricity to all of its customers that really runs second to none if you look at electrical grids across the U.S. So we've got a really good electrical grid system and a top-notch utility to work with in Northwestern Energy. So really, you couple the fact that we have got good ambient temperatures that reduce the cost or the need to do cooling on these machines that we'll talk a little bit more about, with a very reliable and competitive grid structure and cost setup. And then you happen to fall upon a site that's as perfect as the former Mike Mansfield Center out at MSC, where you've got a completely secured property with lots of available vacant industrial space that's zoned properly. In this case, it happens to also be part of an economic development district, or you've heard them called TIFs. We've got the one out where REC Silicon and Montana Precision Products is located. Well, the newest one that Butte has is centered around the MSC South Industrial Park there. And so it's really a win-win for our company, but more so for the community, because what it's gonna do is it's gonna allow a lot of incentives for other companies to kind of follow behind us out there. The improvements that we're making to the electrical infrastructure out there, certainly we wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't necessary for us to meet our goals, but it's really gonna improve and help other companies that need reliable or extensive power demands to locate out there. So that's a little bit on the geography. We're also that 28-mile, 2 gigabit per second fiber optic loop that we put around town in connection with MERDI several years ago. That also makes the MSC site unique that you don't find in any old vacant industrial site. So really, MSC, I know we've been trying to find a great use for that property for many years now. Everything kind of aligned to make that the best site we could have possibly hoped to find anywhere. And the company happened to have a connection with somebody who knew a few things about those sort of spaces here in the community, and that's how we ended up out there. Let's see here. So back to our model. This is going to be our headquarters. It's going to be where our offices are located, no matter how many mining facilities we end up establishing, but it's also, to start, going to be our largest mining facility as well. And so we've got we're renovating the 9,000 square foot former, they call it the DOE building, into our corporate offices, and pretty much everything else on site is being converted into a high density data center targeted to cryptocurrency mining. Let's see. We've, through our CEO and the connections that he has and the people that he's brought on board and the connections that they have, we really have got a great portfolio of customers and strategic partners. And the things that we've been able to get done in the time period it's been done here, it's been very aggressive and energy in more ways than one, demanding. But it's just a project that you're not going to see happen many, if any, other places. And as we get into talking a little bit more about it, everybody in this room should take pride in what we've accomplished out there, because every contractor that's working on site, with the exception of the technical minds that are putting all of these things together, are Montana contractors, and a lot of them are Butte, Anaconda, and Southwest Montana contractors. So this has been a great project in the construction phase, and will continue to be for many years once we're up and running. So we'll get to the technology and equipment here. We definitely want to talk a little bit and try and familiarize you a little bit about what Bitcoin mining is, what a Bitcoin miner looks like, and that sort of thing. So that's what the technology and equipment bullet is about. So here's the real quick overview on Bitcoin. Bitcoin it's the first decentralized digital currency. And I think that the easiest way to maybe, in a short few sentences, kind of give you an understanding of it is we'll follow that mining parallel. So in traditional mining, like Montana Resources, we are mining the ore of copper and molybdenum as it occurs in the geologic structure here, and we're processing it into products that are used in a number of other technologies and uses for profit. In Bitcoin mining, we're, and I would also, a very important part of mining is to acknowledge is there's a quantified amount of it. It's not like there's an inexhaustible supply of minerals, either in the veins that we mine or globally. There's only so many places you're going to find copper and molybdenum deposits or whatever it is you happen to be mining. Same goes with Bitcoin, and now there's hundreds of other types of cryptocurrencies out there. Rather than mining the earth, what we're doing is we're mining these very complex math problems, algorithms, and every time we solve one of these, it spits out or creates a Bitcoin. And so you're mining mathematical equations to come up with a finite resource, and in this case, it's Bitcoin. There's there's a lot of other cryptocurrencies out there. Actually, our facility, we're focusing on Bitcoin right now because it's the most profitable out of all of the cryptocurrencies, but we have the ability to switch and mine for other cryptocurrencies if and when we decide to make that decision. And so what is it used for? It's used to create transactions between folks on a global scale. And the easiest way to really kind of understand how this works is it has a lot of appeal because it cannot be manipulated by governments. It cannot be manipulated by institutions such as banking institutions. And that's not necessarily it's certainly not as big of a problem in the United States as it is in other countries. But it allows us to interact peer-to-peer without having to go through the red tape of government or the extra step, time, and cost of going through a centralized institution. So maybe if you think of a database, a traditional database where you have one computer or computer network that collects information and takes care of it and is in charge of the ledger of that information in one location, whether it's on the cloud in today's day and age or physically in a room like this. That's your standard former model. What the blockchain model is it's a distributed ledger or a peer-to-peer network. So rather than having the one centralized database that is in charge of updating all of the information relative to transactions, with respect to Bitcoin and all cryptocurrencies, you're talking about money and financial transactions, but it doesn't have to be. It's going to be it's already being used for other important things where you need to have a fail-safe record of transactions. This is the one that really kind of came first and is obviously the most profitable right now, but instead of having that centralized database or institution, what you have is a copy of that on millions of computers around the globe. Each one of these computers has the exact same version of the database that would normally be hosted in one location. And the way that it's protected is that you can't add transactions or alter transactions on that database without being confirmed through solving these algorithms. That's where the crypto comes in. It's cryptography. And so they're cryptographic algorithms that you have to solve in order to be even allowed to change on it. And then whatever change you make once you solve that, it has to be verified, validated, and copied by every other computer in the blockchain. And so it takes out the need for having to go through this centralized system, which makes it very accessible, but it also makes it a lot stronger against counterfeiting. You cannot counterfeit a Bitcoin, and it also makes it very hard to get in and hack, so to speak. Instead of hacking one centralized location, you've got that database that is in numerous locations, impossible to hack it from one area. And so that's the draw of blockchain technology and the use of it in cryptocurrency through the Bitcoin and other currencies is what we're talking about when we're talking about what we're doing out at the former MSC site. Was that sort of something everyone kind of grasps? Okay, I think what we want to talk about here is just the fact that we get asked a lot, well, what happens if Bitcoin crashes, or how do you make any money off of this with the amount of money that you're putting into this site and the cost of electricity. The business model that we have set up has been put together by some of the best minds in business and certainly within blockchain technology. And I'm just here to tell you that even with the large fluctuation of Bitcoin, which is becoming more stable, and I think will continue to become more stable as we move forward in time, even as low as it got, I think it got down in the 6,000s per Bitcoin, we can absorb much lower prices of Bitcoin and still making money in those regards. And so this is a model that's going to be here to last. The other thing about what are you going to do when all the Bitcoins are mined, even if the stability does even out, well, there's 21 million Bitcoins according to the algorithms, the way that they're laid out in the Bitcoin blockchain. Right now, we've mined somewhere between 16 and 17 million of them. As we mine more of these, the algorithms become more and more difficult, meaning it's going to take more computational power and time to create additional Bitcoins, to where if you carry that time out to when we'll reach the 21 millionth Bitcoin, that time is going to be 2140 is what they're figuring. So we got 120 years left before Bitcoin, all of the Bitcoins are mined, and then even after that point, as is the case now, there's ongoing transactions being tracked for every Bitcoin that has ever been created. You look at the dollar bill that you probably have in your pocket, there's that long serial number on there. Think of that as the original blockchain algorithm that created that dollar bill. Well, every single dollar bill that was created after that has a longer algorithm or a more complex algorithm. And then every time that dollar is passed between any of us in here for a transaction, that transaction is followed on additional blocks, which are in this blockchain. And so it's very, very secure and very, very complex.
So who creates the algorithms?
The algorithms were created by the people that actually created the currencies themselves. And so I'm sure you've heard this Satoshi Nakamoto name before. We're not sure if it was an individual or a group of individuals, but they came up with the blockchain platform that is Bitcoin. There's another group that came up with the blockchain platform that is Ethereum, and then it just kind of takes course from there. There's rewards for creating the individual units of cryptocurrency, and then there's also transaction rewards for verifying the transactions that take place within the currency once it's created.
Thank you.
So here is a little bit about our mining automation. We are a Bitcoin mine, although if you see here, this is the type of algorithm that Bitcoin runs. Don't ask me what that means because I don't know, but it's the Bitcoin platform, but it also works for a variety of other cryptocurrencies. But back to what I said, right now, the money and the stability, if you can believe that, is in Bitcoin. And so that's what we're focused on right now. We are doing this in a way that no other place is doing it in the world. We have an outfit that is one of our key strategic partners called Token Block. Fred Von Graff, who works for CryptoWatt, is also the CEO of Token Block, and he'll be coming before the public later on down the line to help answer some of these more technical questions. But he's got an automation. He and his group have an automation platform that gives us a higher output of Bitcoin at a more efficient rate than any other operation that's out there, which is really giving us good promise in terms of where we're going to be as we move forward. Talking a little bit about our facilities, I mean, obviously we're headquartered right here in Butte. You've heard the talk about Anaconda. I mean, I think we are still very interested in looking forward. In fact, we have a lease on about 40 acres in the Mill Creek Tippet over there that we're looking to get another Bitcoin facility established. Right now, we're still trying to work with Northwestern Energy to figure out what the power availability is at that site. But again, another good thing happened in Anaconda that I think can very well speak to our role that we are playing and want to continue to play and expand upon in the communities in which we work. The main part of that Anaconda facility, when it gets built, is going to be the Mill Creek area on that 40 acres that's across the road from where the Dave Gates facility is right now. But we're also looking at establishing a 3 megawatt training facility. 3 megawatts is a lot of machines. It's 2,000 of these. So it's still a pretty good size operation. We were going to locate that, we purchased a buy-sell on the old W.K. Dwyer School over there. Well, as soon as we brought that before the community, it became really clear that that was a place we were not going to develop because, one, it's 3 megawatts in what is going to be a megawattage portfolio that has in the hundreds of megawatts. So it wasn't significant, but at the same time, it was very significant to the community and the people in that neighborhood near the old W.K. Dwyer School. So listening to the concerns of the community, we just decided to withdraw our consideration of the W.K. Dwyer School over there. And we are looking, in addition to Anaconda, we're looking at a couple other locations in Montana that might lend themselves to, but all of our focus right now is on getting our site here at MSC up to its fullest capacity. And so here's a nice aerial photograph of the former Mansfield facility. If you go all the way out on South Harrison Avenue, if you've never been there, there's a giant billboard that says Mike Mansfield Advanced Technology Center. We're about a half a mile down that road. It is, like I said, fully secured, and the only building that we're not going to currently rehab into some different use is this big old coal crushing facility. I know Dan used to work out there. He knows probably more about this site than I do and anybody else in this room, but every one of these other buildings out here are going to be or are being turned into high-density data centers. And so this is where we can start talking about what we're doing and what we've already done. So this is the old Department of Energy building. It's this is a 9,000 square foot building that was connected to this other office complex of 20,000 square feet right south of it. All of our office and administration is going to continue to be done for all of our data centers out of this office building here. We've got it about a third of the way renovated right now. We're doing more work there. The rest of these buildings are going to eventually have data miners in them. And right now, the first 3 megawatts, which has 2,000 of these ant miners, or S9s they're called, are located in this building 50 right there. And it's occupying a small portion of this, probably just like this area here is where those machines are at right now. But the next one that we're going to be bringing online is 11 to 12 megawatts in this building here, which we're referring to as building A. That one's going to have a different type of Bitcoin miner, and it's called a Bitfury or a B8. They're about probably 6 times the size of one of these, and so they're about 90 pounds too, and they're very expensive, so I figured it'd be easier for me to bring one of these. These aren't cheap. These are about $3,000 to $4,000 a piece if you try and get one of them on eBay, if you can even get your hands on one, because they're in really high demand now. But this will be the next building that we bring online with another 11 to 12 megawatts, followed by D&E. This is no longer an office complex. It's been totally stripped out, and we've got a firewall that breaks this into two separate buildings. There's going to be another 18 megawatts of power in these buildings, and then from there we're going to bring on Building B and Building C. Building B is probably going to be the last one, and this is for our first phase, so we'll get talking a little bit more about that in detail. The first phase is to 64 megawatts of electricity. We are going to be going live here with 32 soon, but we've been approved by the grid impact study that we worked on with Northwestern Energy for 64 megawatts. We put in a request for 150 at this site. Our hope is that if the power is available there, we will bring this site up to 128 megawatts shortly thereafter we get the 64 built out. The lab building is being used as a manufacturing facility for the cooling towers that are part of this project that we'll have some photos of here really quickly. Tri-County Mechanical, AFCO, those are two of our big local contractors that are working on this site. We couldn't do it without them. I know AFCO and Barnard Construction, they're a Bozeman-based company that specializes in electrical engineering, and then their partner contractors on the construction side is Colstrip Electric and electrical contractors out of Billings. We will utilize those four contractors on any other expansion that we do in Montana. You couldn't find better outfits for doing the kind of work that we're doing, and we're getting it done in a mind-numbing pace. So here's, and that's, I didn't mention this because this is the most public interest, or should be. I mentioned that this is part of a targeted economic development district. Well, we are the first project to develop within this new TED district, and so what we're doing is we're creating the increment that will fund projects that bring improvements to the, not just our business, but the public infrastructure out there. And so we have a development agreement that was approved through the Council of Commissioners that will pay us back $5.5 million for roughly $15.5 million worth of improvements that we're making to the substation out there and the electrical distribution grid. And that's taken place right over in, this is the existing substation, which again made MSC a site that was a lot different than others. That was a 20 megawatt substation. We're building the 64 megawatt substation here, and then if we get approved for the additional ones, that's another good thing about the MSC site. There's a lot of vacant property for expansion out there. And so this is what the new electrical transformer looks like. And that might not look like much, but that is a highly engineered, very specialized construction project. Dan could probably speak to it. It's not done very easily, and the fact that we have built a 64 megawatt substation in less than 3 months is pretty mind-blowing. And that's where, I mean, again, I want to give some credit to Northwestern Energy. They wanted to see this project succeed, and so they're allowing us to do things that they've never allowed another project to do. When we first started chatting with them, they told us that, well, gosh, you're going to be looking at about 18 months to get a substation of that size designed and constructed the way we do it. And so we said, well, what about the way we do it? We have our own electrical engineers and some specialized contractors who've done this kind of work all over the world. Would you consider, with your guys' cooperation and oversight, letting us do it ourselves? They said yes, and the rest is a very short amount of history, because we're about ready to go online with the first 32 megawatts here very shortly. This is another view of the substation improvements. This is building A, and you can see some of the improvements or alterations that have been made to turn these big old buildings into high-density data centers is the sides of the buildings are cut out and replaced with some screening and filter fabric to allow cold airflow in so we can take advantage of our geological area here. And then these goosenecks on top are the large fans that draw the hot air that's created by these things out and into the atmosphere to keep a good operating temperature in all of these buildings. And there's another version of them. This is the former 20,000 square foot office complex that is now, if you go back here, buildings D and E, that's what they look like now, and they have those same goosenecks. You get a little closer up look at what the screening looks like. Right now, there's not anything in these because the air quality is really good right now, but let's hope it's not like last summer. But if the air quality gets worse with summer forest fires, we can put filter fabric in here that'll keep the air clean that comes into our data center here. And then again, these are the units that suck out the hot air and vent it into the atmosphere. And it's just warm air. There's nothing else in that but heat. And so that's kind of the improvements that are being done on a very large level out there. The way these things work, and this is where we'll just give you a quick overview of these units. This is a very, very powerful computing machine. If you look on the tops of them, you can come up and take a look at them on your way out. This one says S9, so these are called S9s. They're made by a company called Bitmain out of China. The only two real big companies that manufacture Bitcoin miners, unfortunately, are in China. The US has not broken in on that market yet. But this one's called an ant miner. And then we got another one on site that'll be in the building A called a Bitfury or a B8. And they call those snow leopards within the industry. And they're about 6 times the size of this, but they're not as efficient. So most, like Project Spokane over in the Missoula area, they use all S9s. We have all S9s plus one building full of the B8s right now. And the way these things work is they're set on these racks that AFCO builds. This end faces the cold air side, and it sucks cold air in and through here, and then out the other side into the central part of the room, in which hot air rises anyway, but we have these large fans that suck the hot air up and out the top, to the extent that we're moving several million cubic feet of hot air on an hourly basis. It's a lot of air. And the delta, or the difference in temperature here, this is where our temperature here in Montana comes into play. There's a 30 to 40 degree temperature increase from the air that comes in this side when it comes out this side. So it's much more desirable to be operating in an area where all but 14 days a year, the temperature here is 77 degrees or less. That's that threshold. If you're gonna have days where the temperatures are above 77 degrees, you're gonna have to look at additional methods which are much more difficult and expensive of cooling than we're using here. And so even though stuff that we are using here with these temperatures are, again, they're patented and they're only being used by our outfit. So we really think we have got a great new way of doing things in the cryptocurrency market. And so, like I said, we've got 2,000 of these running right now, 24 hours a day. You get on a computer website to find out how fast these things are moving, and just to give you a little bit of idea of what the computing power is on this. You'll see a 13.5 T on this. That one has I think it's a 14 T. That's 13.5 terabytes per second. That's how fast. I mean, we're not talking about just your standard differential equation here. We're talking about these enormous algorithms, and these things are just hashing them out quicker than anything you can imagine. And so that's what you're looking at for what's actually doing the mining. Right now, we have almost $30 million worth of our owned equipment in these buildings out there. We're hosting some other individuals' machines out there right now, but like I said, we're moving away to that, to where as we grow and build this site out, we are going to be investing more money into our own machines. And what that means from a development standpoint is these things are real property, so they get taxed. Business equipment, real property taxes. So as far as what we estimated, and we've been very conservative in how we're building this site out, and so we ran our numbers with the Department of Revenue on the first 64 megawatts and estimated that we're going to have about $62 million worth of improvements there. When we walked into MSC, its annual tax revenue was a little over $100,000 a year in taxes. Based on our first year's development, we'll now be paying over $1 million in taxes into that economic development district right now. So this is gonna really make it attractive for other companies, for us to do more development down there at that site, but for other companies to locate down there and develop as well, because that creates incentive within that economic district. Just real quick here, I think we're probably getting close to, we got about 15 minutes left here. These have already been presented when we got our development agreement approved through the Council of Commissioners, but you can see that the only difference in this version is we didn't include the property acquisition price, thereabouts of what it costs for us to get our hands on the MSE site. But so if you subtract that from the 66.75, you're at 61.75, or around $62 million. Around 30 of that is again in the machines. 15.4 were in those electrical substation and distribution network improvements, and the remaining 17 million is in all of those updates that we've made to the buildings out there and whatnot. So we're pretty close to where we're at. You know, this was what our estimated expenditures were by quarter when we first came through here. We're over $50 million into the project right now, and we're in just nearing the second month of second quarter. So we're right on target. These numbers might be a little higher as we plan to purchase more of our own machines, but at this point, we feel pretty confident that things are going along just how we planned them. Just a real quick bit for us to talk about some of our key operating partners that this would not be possible without it. Again, we took ownership of this site on January 18th, and by March 16th, that's when we went online with our first 3 megawatts of power, which if you compare that to any other cryptocurrency mine in the nation, not only are we doing it, we would contend better, but a lot higher fidelity in terms of how clean we're doing things and in the way we're innovating the technology. They're not doing it anywhere close to as quickly as we're doing it here. Project Spokane was over a year before they were up and running at 20 megawatts, and we're going to be at over 30 megawatts here within our first 6 months on the site. And we're doing it in a way, shape, and form that is really going to revolutionize the industry, we believe. Northwestern Energy, I mean, I've given them a couple of specific kudos, but they're really revolutionizing the way a utility works with these cryptocurrency operations, and we couldn't be doing this without them, and are happy to be working with them in the way that we have been, and are confident that it's going to continue to pay off as we develop some of our other sites. Barnard Construction, again, they're a world-class construction and engineering company out of Bozeman. Token Block is the group that has the patents on all the proprietary automation, the way that, you know, they're working with AFCO to design the racks, the way that we put these up so that it has the most optimum airflow and energy usage on them. We've got our own cabling structure, really an impressive outfit, and they got some great folks working for them. They're based out of Tucson, Arizona, but there's only a few of them that are in being the kind of lead architects on how we build these mines. We couldn't be doing it without them, but the impact of the local economy is in the Barnards and the CEIs and the AFCOs and Ray Peterson Electric out of Anaconda. Who'd have thought that the best cryptocurrency electrician company was in Anaconda, Montana? Ray Peterson has got 45 full-time union electricians working on this job, and they are just knocking it out of the park. It's pretty impressive. AFCO, again, they got operations in Anaconda and now Butte again. They are doing a lot of work out of their Butte shop here on some of the racking that they're building for us. And then all of these other service providers. And if you go through that list, look at how many of them are from Butte and Anaconda. They're all from Montana. So what is that?